At our engagement dinner, my MIL raised her glass and said to the woman who finally said yes. After 5 others didn't. Everyone laughed. I smiled and said, and to the woman who finally accepted me. After 3 failed campaigns, the room went quiet, except for my future father-in-law who gave me a slow clap. I met Jessica during a brisk autumn in Chicago. The city was alive with the vibrant hues of fall, leaves crunching underfoot as people bustled about. We were both attending an art exhibition at a small gallery in the West Loop. The room was filled with abstract paintings, the kind that made you tilt your head and pretend to understand. Soft jazz played in the background and the scent of red wine mingled with that of oil paint. I was examining a particularly perplexing piece when Jessica approached. She had a warm smile and eyes that sparkled with curiosity. "Do you get it?" she asked, nodding toward the painting. I chuckled, relieved that I wasn't the only one puzzled. Not even a little. We spent the rest of the evening sharing interpretations, each more absurd than the last. Our laughter echoed through the gallery, drawing a few amused glances. By the end of the night, I knew I wanted to see her again. Our relationship blossomed quickly. We explored the city together, from the bustling streets of the Loop to the tranquil shores of Lake Michigan. Jessica had an adventurous spirit, always eager to try new things. She introduced me to hole-in-the-wall eateries that served the best deep-dish pizza and took me to hidden jazz clubs where the music seeped into your soul. However, not everything was perfect. From the beginning, I sensed tension with her mother, Margaret. Margaret was the epitome of Chicago's old-money elite. She carried herself with an air of sophistication that was both intimidating and, at times, dismissive. Her world revolved around charity galas, country clubs, and maintaining appearances. I, on the other hand, was a public school teacher. I loved my job and took pride in shaping young minds, but my modest salary and lack of prestigious lineage didn't exactly align with Margaret's expectations for her daughter's partner. Our interactions were cordial but strained. Margaret would often make subtle comments, veiled criticisms that were easy to dismiss individually but collectively painted a clear picture. At family gatherings, she'd inquire about my career plans, always emphasizing the word plans as if what I was doing wasn't enough. She'd mention acquaintances who had moved up in the world, casting sideways glances in my direction. Jessica was aware of her mother's attitude and often reassured me. "She'll come around," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "She just needs time." I wanted to believe her, so I endured the passive-aggressive remarks and the judgmental glances, all for the woman I loved. After a year of dating, I proposed to Jessica during a weekend getaway to Galena, a charming town nestled along the Mississippi River. We were hiking a scenic trail when I found the perfect spot overlooking the water. With the autumn leaves painting the landscape in shades of gold and crimson, I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said yes, and we embraced, the world around us fading away. Upon our return to Chicago, we shared the news with our families. Jessica's father, Robert, was genuinely happy for us. He was a quiet man, often overshadowed by his wife's domineering presence, but his warm handshake and heartfelt congratulations meant the world to me. Margaret's reaction was more subdued. She offered a polite smile and murmured something about being pleased, but her eyes told a different story. The engagement dinner was scheduled for the following Saturday at La Bella Vita, an upscale Italian restaurant known for its intimate ambience and exquisite cuisine. The evening arrived and I found myself standing outside the restaurant, nerves gnawing at my stomach. I adjusted my tie for the umpteenth time, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The interior was warm and inviting, with dim lighting casting a soft glow over the mahogany furnishings. The scent of garlic and fresh basil wafted through the air, making my mouth water. A long table had been set up in a private section, adorned with white linens and flickering candles. Jessica greeted me with a radiant smile, her emerald green dress accentuating her fiery red hair. She looked stunning, and for a moment, my anxieties melted away. Guests began to arrive, filling the room with laughter and chatter. Jessica's siblings, her close friends, and a few of my colleagues from work all gathered to celebrate our union. Margaret and Robert were among the last to arrive. Margaret was dressed impeccably in a navy blue ensemble, her pearl necklace gleaming under the chandelier's light. Dinner was served and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Stories were shared, toasts were made, and for a while it felt like everyone was genuinely happy for us. As the dessert plates were cleared, Margaret stood up, holding her wine glass delicately between her fingers. The room gradually quieted, all eyes turning to her. She smiled, a practiced expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'd like to propose a toast, she began, her voice smooth and measured. I felt Jessica's hand tighten around mine under the table. Margaret's gaze swept over the assembled guests before settling on me. To the woman who finally said yes, she continued, pausing for effect, after 5 others didn't. There was a beat of silence. Then some people chuckled. A few gave those awkward half-laughs you do when you're not sure if something is a joke or just rude. Jessica didn't laugh. She stared at her mother, jaw slightly clenched. Her sister shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I smiled. I wasn't going to let Margaret humiliate me without answering back. I raised my glass, made sure everyone was watching, and said, "And to the woman who finally accepted me." After 3 failed campaigns. Silence. Total silence. Even the clinking of forks and quiet background music seemed to pause. Then Robert, Jessica's dad, gave a single loud clap. Then another, slow, sarcastic, like he'd just watched someone slam dunk in the middle of a funeral. Everyone froze again. Robert kept clapping. Eventually, a couple of nervous guests joined in. Jessica gave me a look that was hard to read. Somewhere between thank you and oh my God. Margaret sat down, her face tight. She didn't say another word the rest of the night. That should have been the end of it. A tense moment, sure, but survivable. It wasn't. 2 days later, I came home from work and found Jessica sitting on the couch, holding her phone like it had personally betrayed her. She didn't say anything at first. Just handed me the phone. It was an email. From Margaret. To Jessica. About me. Subject line, "This is not a match made in heaven." Margaret had written a full essay about why Jessica should call off the wedding. She called me beneath her station, said I had no drive to advance, said my sense of humor was crude and defensive, and even accused me of planning to live off Jessica's family money. She ended it with, "This is your last chance to choose wisely. Marriage is permanent. Regret is too." Jessica was furious, but not shocked. "This is how she is," she said. "She does this. She manipulates. She throws fits and then pretends she was just being honest." I asked her what she wanted to do. "I'm marrying you," she said. "That's not changing." Still, things got worse. Margaret started calling family members, planting seeds, saying she was concerned, that Jessica was rushing, that I was too sensitive and not used to our kind of people. Then the kicker. Jessica's job, she worked in PR for a major firm in downtown Chicago, suddenly started getting weird complaints. Anonymous tips. Whispers that she was unprofessional, that she had conflicts of interest. We couldn't prove anything, but it smelled like sabotage. Jessica got written up by HR. Not fired, but warned. She was shaken. "I can't believe she'd do this," she said. I can't even think straight." I told her we needed to take a step back. Think. Regroup. So we did. We decided to pause all wedding planning. Not cancel. Just pause. Margaret took it as a win. She sent Jessica a gift basket with a note that said, "I knew you'd see reason." Jessica didn't respond. She blocked her number. But Margaret wasn't done. That same week, Jessica's ex, let's call him Brad, suddenly reappeared. Like magic. He texted Jessica out of nowhere. "Hey. Long time. Heard you're single again. Want to catch up?" Jessica hadn't spoken to him in almost 2 years. And she sure as hell hadn't told anyone we were single again. We knew who had. Margaret. Turns out Brad's mom was one of Margaret's friends. They played tennis together. Jessica ignored the text. But I was furious. And here's the thing. I'm not the type to plot. I don't enjoy drama. I'm not a revenge guy. But there comes a point where someone pushes too far. And Margaret had crossed that line, not once, not twice, but over and over again. So I decided I was going to push back. Not with yelling. Not with threats. With something else. Something she'd never see coming. Something I'd been quietly working on for weeks. I didn't tell Jessica right away what I was planning. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I needed her to be completely clean in all of this. Margaret was the type of person who would twist anything. If Jessica even knew what I was doing, Margaret would find a way to use it against her. So while things between us slowed down, I stayed busy. I started digging. Not into Margaret's bank account or anything shady. Just public records. Old news clippings. Social media trails. LinkedIn connections. I have a buddy, let's call him Malik, who works in compliance for a major firm. He's used to tracking financial histories, assets, shell companies, you name it. I asked him for a favor. All I gave him was Margaret's full name and a few known addresses. A week later, Malik called me. Dude, he said, you sitting down? I was at my desk, lesson plans half-graded, when he dropped the bomb. Apparently, a few years ago, Margaret's charity, some arts and literacy nonprofit she'd been bragging about at every dinner party for years, got audited. Quietly. No headlines. No police. But the audit found irregularities. Missing funds. Misused donations. The board restructured and Margaret stepped down. No charges. No scandal. But she was quietly removed, and they kept it hush-hush to protect the other donors. I asked Malik if there was proof. He sent me internal meeting minutes and IRS records. Not illegal, but definitely unethical. Definitely enough to raise eyebrows. That's when I had an idea. Remember that engagement dinner? How Margaret humiliated me in front of 30 people. I decided I'd return the favor. Not in front of 30 people. In front of 300. Jessica and I were invited to a black tie gala. A big fundraiser event downtown, hosted by one of the very same nonprofits Margaret used to be on the board of. She wasn't invited this time. She hadn't been since the audit. But guess who was asked to present a teacher's award? Me. One of my students had submitted an essay about my teaching. Somehow it made its way to the organizers. I was going to be on stage. In a room full of Margaret's friends, donors, and old connections. I didn't want to destroy her. I'm not cruel. But I did want to hold up a mirror. Let her see how it felt. So I prepared my speech. Kept it clean. Kept it honest. But halfway through I paused. Looked out into the crowd and said, funny thing about education, it's not always what you learn in a classroom. Sometimes we learn more by observing the people around us. Their choices. Their character. Their integrity or lack thereof. A few people stiffened. I smiled. And sometimes those people are held up as leaders. Even when they've quietly stepped down. Even when they've misused trust. Because silence is easier than truth. A few heads turned. Just like a parent who can't accept that their child loves someone different than what they planned. So they meddle. They manipulate. They sabotage. All while pretending it's love. I let that hang. Then I finished the speech with a line from one of my students. Real leaders lift people up. Not because it makes them look good, but because it's the right thing to do. Applause. Standing ovation. I stepped off that stage with my heart pounding. Jessica met me backstage. She looked me dead in the eyes and said that was about my mother. I nodded. She took a breath. Then said good. That night Margaret called. Left 3 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. But then, just when we thought things were finally quieting down, Jessica got summoned to her HR office again. This time, not about anonymous complaints. Someone had submitted a formal report accusing her of professional misconduct. With screenshots. Private texts. Old ones. Edited. Taken out of context. Messages she'd sent me during our early dating days, venting about clients, joking about coworkers. Stuff she never meant for anyone else to see. It wasn't enough to get her fired, but it was a warning. A serious one. That's when we realized Margaret hadn't stopped. She'd just changed tactics. She wasn't trying to break us up anymore. She was trying to break Jessica down. Jessica was quiet for a long time after the HR meeting. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just sat there on our couch, staring at her folded hands. Finally, she said, I'm done pretending she'll change. I nodded. We both knew Margaret had gone too far. She didn't just cross a line, she erased it. But here's the thing. This whole time, we'd been playing defense. Dodging attacks, putting out fires, reacting to the mess. Yeah? We were going on offense. Jessica wasn't just angry, she was focused. I want to end this, she said. For good. So we made a plan. We didn't go for something flashy or illegal. No revenge pranks or screaming matches. We were smarter than that. We went after the one thing Margaret loved most, her image. We started small. We sent anonymous tips to some local journalists, the kind who dig into nonprofits and political money trails. Nothing untrue. Just facts. Things from those IRS records Malik found. Quiet emails with documents attached. 2 weeks later, Margaret's name popped up in a small column in the Chicago Tribune. Former nonprofit board member connected to missing funds. No charges. No lawsuits. But the article made people talk. And it made Margaret panic. She called Jessica screaming. You did this. You ungrateful brat. You think you're better than me now? Jessica calmly said, no. I just think I'm done being afraid of you. Then she hung up. But we weren't done. Remember that tennis group Margaret played with? All her socialite friends? One of them, Cheryl, had always been kind to us. Cheryl invited Jessica to lunch, said she was sorry about everything. That's when Jessica told her everything. The blackmail, the edited texts, the sabotage. Cheryl was horrified. And more importantly, she talked. Soon the gossip spread like wildfire. Margaret found herself iced out of parties, committees, even her precious book club. No more invites. No more, so good to see you. Just fake smiles and polite silence. She was still rich. Still lived in her huge house. But her kingdom? It crumbled. As for Jessica, she quit her job. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She took time off, went back to school, and started working on a new career, one she loved, far away from the corporate games. Me? I stayed teaching. But I learned something too. I made the mistake of staying quiet for too long. Of trying to be polite when someone was clearly playing dirty. I should have protected Jessica sooner. Should have drawn the line harder earlier. That's on me. But I fixed it. We got married last spring. Not in a big fancy ballroom, but on a cliffside in Big Sur. Just us, a few close friends, and the Pacific Ocean behind us. Margaret wasn't invited. She sent a gift anyway. A silver picture frame. No note. No card. We gave it away. Yeah? We're happy. Really happy. And Margaret? Last we heard, she'd moved to a smaller house in another part of town. Said she needed a fresh start. Funny thing is she still tells people she's just taking a break from society. But everyone knows the truth. She lost. Not just a battle. She lost the war. Because when you treat people like dirt, eventually they stop giving you a chance. And when you try to ruin your own daughter's life, you end up alone. And no amount of money can fix that.